Good evening. It's June the 6th, D-Day, Journal 71, T+65. Um, Before I say anything else, to my father's generation, to the greatest generation, we owe so much to so many um, that I think it's reasonable to take a moment to think about the luxury that we have, the freedoms we enjoy, and the sacrifice that was made there. Um, and maybe that had something to do with what I'd like to talk about tonight. And you're going to have to figure out how to stitch it all together um, in many ways. I received a letter, a two-page letter from my pen pal, and really uh, writing a two-page handwritten letter is significant. I mean, there's an awful lot there because, like me, he tends to put a lot of thought and effort into the letter, into the substance, the content of the letter. And he was talking about what he's currently involved in, which is the sale of automotive software, but I'm not sure that it makes much of a difference. It's both management and repair software. And in the letter, he was discussed it at great length his interaction with a client or a potential client that both he and I had spent time with on one of my ride-alongs with him, and it was meaningful in the respect that I knew the shop and I knew the gentleman that he was referring to, and in the letter he detailed how this shop owner had has no computerized invoices, probably had broken half a dozen Bureau of Automotive Repair regulations in formulating an estimate that was incomplete, unsigned. I mean, just about everything that you could do wrong on an invoice was incorrect. And then to add insult to injury, he he did not charge for critical supplies that he incurred a cost on. You know, they didn't just fall out of the sky in his shop, and failed to charge on that, and then gave his client credit, receiving a down payment of $100 on an $800 invoice. Um, as anyone who knows anything about small business management, or particularly shop management, for those of us who've studied that and really worked hard to understand it, there are so many things that are so intrinsically wrong in that story. It's hard to imagine. Now you've got to remember that my friend was there to help this guy. I mean, literally, not just to sell him something, but to help him, to change his life, to make his life better, to give him the tools that he needs to ensure that he doesn't forget to charge for these things, because it wasn't clear whether he just forgot or whether he decided he was going to give them away, or he decided that he wasn't going to charge because that would have taken the bill, the invoice, the customer cost over the top, and the customer might have chosen not to do that repair. And in the end, the thing that was so incredibly difficult to understand was that he refused to take advantage of the software that this company offers, which is solid software. I mean, it's something that could truly have helped him, and could help him in the future in so many different ways. And the reason that he gave for that, two reasons that he gave for that, is one, that he can't type. He doesn't know how to type. with more than one finger at a time, certainly can learn how to type. And two, that he didn't know how or where or when he would ever have $30 extra a month to invest in the future of his shop and his business. I could feel my head go, just explode, based upon all of that input. And it was very clearly outlined in the letter. There were no extra. There wasn't a lot of superfluous there. It was all, all very real, very meaty, substantive explanations. But you have to start thinking about why somebody confronted with an obvious path towards success that had been paved by so many other people would say no. And the only reason that you can come up with, that I can come up with anyway, is or certainly one of the most powerful reasons, is fear. That still small voice that whispers in your ear, part of the amygdala, that can't communicate with words, but sure gives you the feeling of fear, the abject terror associated with that, and try and understand why he was so afraid. And there are a myriad number of reasons here. I mean, if you think about it, and I'm sure that you can find a way to go ahead and take this and apply it to your own life. But first of all, my friend and this gentleman are of two different cultures. And it doesn't matter what that culture is. It could be Hispanic, it could be Armenian, it could be Chinese, it could be Korean, Vietnamese, Laotian, it could be any of the Eastern European countries, any of the Middle Eastern countries, it could be any of that. But my friend is not of that culture. So there's an instant distrust that's built into the relationship that sometimes you don't think of, or it doesn't bubble to the surface until perhaps it's too late. So there's that. Second, there are always more reasons not to do something than there are to do it. And the fear of success, in my opinion at least, is a far more powerful fear than the fear of failure. If you fail, you go back to where you were. You lose a little money, you lose a little time, maybe you lose a piece of yourself, but you don't lose it all. If you succeed, if you attempt something new and you succeed, everything changes. Your life is not the same anymore. Your friends are looking at you sideways. What did you do to succeed where I could not? Especially colleagues in the same business, especially in the automotive repair industry, where the majority of shops are marginal at best. So there's the fear of success. There's fear of making a commitment to that $30 a month, and what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't make you more money? And quite frankly, it won't. It can't unless you get involved in the process and make it make you more money. Unless you go ahead and invest the effort, the energy, unless you do the work to learn how to make it work for you. And then have the courage to go ahead and make the changes that the software is going to indicate need to be made in order to be successful. If you have software that tells you what your margins are and you know what your margins should be, and they're far below that, then you need to do something to increase your margins. And that's terrifying. If I charge more, will anybody come to see me? Will anybody go ahead and bring their car to the shop? But this was an interesting exercise in human nature. It was an interesting exercise in trying to identify what those modifiers are, what you have to change in order to build enough trust, enough of a relationship with a potential client, another individual, another human being, to go ahead and make things work, um, get the desired result. And it was obvious in the letter from my friend's explanation that he hadn't gotten there yet. And it was interesting to sit down 65 miles away, and it could have been 65,000 miles away. It doesn't really matter. Um, and try and identify all the things that you've learned over the years about small business management or just life management in general, and say, what do I have to do to overcome the fear? What do I have to do to get to a place where I can make these changes that I need to make? And in most cases, you have to bottom out. It's probably no different than being an addict in some ways, um, and overcoming that problem or those problems by getting to the point where you just can't stand it anymore. You're mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore. And obviously, this gentleman who my friend was dealing with hadn't gotten there yet. Now, the interesting question is how much time as an advocate or as a colleague or as a consultant do you allow each potential client to steal from you before you realize that they're never going to do what you need them to do, never going to do what they need to do in order to be successful? I mean, after all, you can't make them successful. You can't make them do the things that you want them to do. We don't have that kind of power. And that's the question. That's the question I'm going to leave you with this evening is what do you have to do to overcome your fears, your anxieties, um, in order to be the best you that you can be in relationships, in business, in life, in partnerships, in any way? What's the best husband, father, son, daughter, wife, mother, grandmother, grandfather, whatever. Um, so on this day where so many thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of American servicemen cleared the beach, you're wondering how I was going to get back to that, right? Cleared the beach and overcame their fears, or did what they had to do despite the fact that they were terrified. Maybe that's a lesson for all of us. Until tomorrow, I welcome your responses and your answers. You know where to find me if you need me. Until then, stay well and take care. This is me, Mitchell, signing off. Good night.